Awesome. All right, the hardest part of all is seeing if my screen will share okay. And I'm going to try to hide this. Can you see the PowerPoint, Gabby?
Yes.
All right, and I'm going to try to hide that to see if it will make it look better. Does that look okay?
It will. Yes.
Okay, awesome. There we go. All right, welcome everybody. This is the Emotional Freedom Technique Training, so EFT for short, or tapping. You may have heard of it that way. My name is Ann Nash. I'm the Vice President of Behavioral Health for ViaQuest Psychiatric and Behavioral Solutions. And I ran across this tapping several years ago, and I started using it for my own self-care. Sometimes this job is a little overwhelming, and so a way to be able to help with that. And I really felt like it benefited me greatly. So it started my journey of looking for ways that I can incorporate this clinically. And so here I am today. I am going through a certification to be a certified clinical provider for EFT. And I wanted to share this information with this team because there's a lot that you can do without being certified, be able to incorporate this to what you're doing, and no matter what discipline, either yourself personally or with your clients. And I'll get into some of that. So wanted to let you know about some of the objectives today and some of the things that we're going to be doing. We're to be certified, the training is like a week long, and then you go through mentorship for a year. So it's not like you're going to leave today and you're going to be certified, but you're going to know a little bit about it and about maybe what are the next steps you want to take with this training. Maybe you decide you want to be certified in this, or you want to at least try some of the interventions. So you will be able to use some of the interventions after leaving today. You just won't be clinically certified. And so we'll talk about that. So we're going to define what is it? What is this emotional freedom technique? What are tapping techniques? What's the science behind it? And that's where it really, piqued my curiosity when I saw all the brain science that goes with it. We're going to talk about the subjective unit of distress scale, the SUDS, to continually measure outcomes that guide treatment refinements. And we're going to review the negative thoughts, emotions, and corresponding physical discomfort that are released during the EFT tapping. I want to acknowledge the resources. So I am going through the EFT Tapping Training Institute to get my certification. So I'm under the mentorship of Alina Frank. She's known worldwide for in EFT, and her husband, Craig Warner, as well. I also have used the resources through the Tapping Solution. Some of you may have heard of that. It's Nick Warner. And so they have an app you could download as well. So they've done a lot for furthering this work as well by their the information. You can do a YouTube video or YouTube search, and you'll see their names come up. And then, of course, Gary Craig, who was the founder of EFT, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. You will be able to get this presentation as well as all the resources that I'm noting. You're going to get a resource list that you'll be able to see, so you don't have to take notes for all the websites that will be coming. I just wanted to acknowledge them in the beginning. All right, so now we're going to launch a quiz, a poll that I would like all of you guys to please take, and then we'll get into this. So, and all you have to do is answer one question. So if you could all please do that, then we could have an idea where you're coming from. Awesome. It looks like all 46 have now completed it, right, Gabby? All right, so I'm going to share the results. There we go. This is the final, right? Can everybody see the results on the screen?
Yes, it should be sharing that now.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you to whoever was honest about it. Sounds like woo-woo made up stuff. That was me actually in the beginning. I was like, what the heck? Tapping on me is gonna have do with something? And each time it does, I'm still amazed. I'm like, how did that happen? It doesn't make any sense to me. but it does. So thank you for that. Most of you are right there where you've heard of it, but never tried it. And then there are several of you that have tried it. Looks like there was one that used it on a regular basis, and two that shared they experienced great benefits from using it. So I really want to go ahead, if possible, and have the ones that said you've tried it. Either you've tried it, use a regular basis, experienced great benefits. If would you be willing to share with the group what your experience has been like with using EFT? And I think if you might have to unmute yourself.
So Anne, I could share. It's Brenda.
Sure. Thanks, Brenda.
So I've actually been to a summit with Brad Yates.
Oh, good.
And
Yes, awesome.
it was in an area that I had been in, and I use it all the time, and I do find it to be helpful. I have a friend who is also trained in EMDR, and I know
Yes,
sometimes she says that she feels that the EFT tapping doesn't do as much for her, so maybe it is personalized, but um, yeah, she finds the EMDR, which I feel is pretty similar, which I thought was interesting.
absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about how they're so similar. So thank you, Brenda. I appreciate that. See, it's a real person that has also heard of this and used it. So thank you so much for that. All right. So anybody else want to share before we move on?
Sorry, I
All
was
right.
having trouble unmuting. I did go through a video training a couple years ago with this and I loved it, but I never used like I did, you know what I mean? I went to the training for CUs, thought it was interesting and never was able to incorporate it too much. And so I'm really excited about this. But I did find out, and she's not on today, but I found out that Georgia Safarides is certified.
Yes.
And she told me a story yesterday that there was a client that they used this on a full-blown panic attack on the floor, fetal position, couldn't move, and within just using the tapping, they were able to get the client was able to get off the floor and like really de-escalate and regulate. And said it was really, that was like the first time that they really used it, and like she was amazed at how successful it was.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate
Mhm.
that. Well, that's awesome.
She
I didn't
said
realize
she's not on.
I knew she had done EFT, but I didn't realize she was certified. So that's great because it is definitely a big undertaking to get to that point. So that's awesome. Well, and I want you guys to know it's okay to have some reservation about this, but EFT has really come a long way. So if you've been to any of the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addictions, DODD has some trauma trainings. They have been the last couple of years. They've been having someone on there to actually go through tapping as part of their regular summits and their regular meetings. So I think that's awesome that they're recognizing it as well as a valuable tool. So but anyway, I'm going to get into this a little bit for you guys. So thank you so much for what you've shared. So one of the things is, this could be a way that you could actually integrate tapping into your clinical toolbox if you would like to. And the way it works is, and as we're going to get through this, you're going to use, self stimulation of acupuncture points through tapping to decrease stress. One of the handouts you're going to get is some of the meridian points where it shows you, if you, for example, you touch the top of your head, what is that normally good for? And then so what we're trying to do is instead of actually putting needles for acupuncture, we're just using our own fingers to be able to, replicate and duplicate that. So EFT, it's a body-centric therapy. It combines elements of cognitive therapy and exposure therapy that you might already use with light pressure on acupoints. So maybe you didn't know this, but the number of professionals now that are using EFT tapping is estimated in the tens of thousands. And it's used by psychotherapists, therapists, physicians, athletic trainers, nurses, life coaches, disaster relief workers. Lots of people have started using EFT tapping as a way to help regulate and bring down some of those uncomfortable symptoms. So I mentioned this before, but basically it's a somatic intervention. So you're actually the physical part of where you're touching on your body to reduce psychological distress through self-stimulation of acupoints. We're going to talk about on the face and upper body. There are other types of EFT that you can actually expand, and sometimes they use more of their torso where they're tapping. That today, just so maybe you'll know and you won't be so alarmed, is your face and upper body. And so the stress response experience not only of a constellation of emotions and patterns and thinking, but also that physiological symptoms in our body that result in a dysregulated nervous system. So many people have heard of, the book and training on the body keeps the score. Very similar to that. We know trauma is held in our body, and sometimes people say my back is killing me, and then you finally went through and really approached therapy with trauma, and then that pain went away, the physical pain. So tapping, we know that there's a way that your body is holding this energy in your nervous system. So it's another way to hopefully help regulate that. It's extremely versatile. It's a supplement to existing therapeutic interventions, an effective self-help technique for immediate relief of distressful symptoms outside the clinical setting. I want to give you guys this overview. So in the beginning, I'm sorry, I'm reading some of the slides, but I want to make sure you have the information. But we're going to actually get into the practice of this later on. I just feel like it's important to set this up so you have an idea of where this came from, where we're at today within the research as we're going through and providing EFT. So this first slide, hopefully everybody can see it okay. I know it's a lot of information on the screen. But basically, this is showing the progression as to how we got to EFT in 1990. There's basic principles that led up to it. So it actually first started, with holistic psychology. Then it went into the Pavlov's conditioning, behavioral therapy, with Skinner. Then we had Volp's, the counter conditioning. That most of you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, Ellis and Beck. And then the human-centered approach. So when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then it started to get into the thought-filled therapy. So again, every little bit of those previous ways of looking, therapies, were all little bits and pieces we're taking from it to continue on this development of EFT. Then we get into thought-filled therapy, where we're talking about those acupoints, that they affect those physiological symptoms, and then exposure therapy. Many of you guys have heard of exposure therapy before. So the way EFT uses exposure therapy is you actually think about the event. You're not actually going through it, but while you're in session, you're thinking about it as you're going through the tapping. And so then we have in 1990, Gary Craig developed the final version here, the emotional freedom technique, and has since the principles for how he developed remain pretty solid. And so they've continued with that. And the thing that's changed is we now are able to partner it in a clinical setting. And so the certification that I'm going through right now, like I was mentioning under Alina and Craig, is actually aligning therapy. So aligning being a licensed therapist with EFT. And so that's, again, an option that you might have later on that you might decide that's something you want to focus on. All right, so I know there's a lot on the screen. Again, it's just kind of showing you the development, that this wasn't just somebody's crazy idea that they were going to come up with this, that they got to this point because they studied and applied many well-known people in our field before it was developed into the emotional freedom techniques. I want to show a video of Gary Craig, who is the founder. I always think it's important to be able to show directly from the person that developed this particular type of treatment. So some of the claims you might say, that's not possible. Just watch the whole thing, and then we can talk a little bit about it. But again, I think it's really important for you to hear directly from him. So hopefully it'll play.
Pain was in every.
Okay, I'm going to pause it again. Gabby, can you tell me if you heard that?
You're good to go.
Awesome.
Part of my body for many, many years. I stopped needing a doctor.
I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. They cannot find any traces that it ever existed in my body.
I had a over 80 allergies, and I was allergic to the world, basically. I am not allergic to anything. I can eat anything I want to.
Diabetes, post-traumatic stress disorder.
EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and it's an emotional version of acupuncture, except we don't use needles. Instead, we address emotional issues. The emotional contributor to disease and ailments and physical things is far greater than the emphasis that's been given to it to date. All of us know intuitively that if we're carrying around angers and griefs and guilts and traumas, it shows up physically. If somebody is really angry, their stomach is tight, maybe the veins down out on their neck, their blood pressure goes up. Emotions cause physical things. Well, you keep that body a long period of time, now you're looking at diseases.
You know, in my own case, I got tired of giving medications which would just treat the symptoms and didn't really address what I thought was the underlying problem.
EFT, on the other hand, zeroes right in on it, and I think that's why we get results where nothing else will.
It's possible to clear emotional issues at a deep enough level that physical healing results.
Acupuncture relies on the fact that there are subtle energies that run throughout the body called meridians. If they're not flowing well, the body's health does not do well. And what I found was something just very stunning. If we stimulate these meridians, tapping on them with our fingertips, it tends to balance things out, and people that would have an intense emotional issue, it would just fade. Sometimes it would happen in minutes. Once you start taking care of these emotional issues and doing it correctly and really resolving them, physical things start to subside as well.
Immediately, I could control my pain levels.
I cannot think of one case it did not work on a migraine. My migraine was gone in 10 minutes.
I don't have diabetes anymore. I don't have to check my blood anymore. I gave my blood meter to my sister, whose cat has diabetes because he's overweight.
What we've really done is taken a very ancient, very well-established process, the ancient Chinese way of going about healing. We've dusted it off, and we've added an innovation or two, and this is the new forefront to me. We're on the ground floor of this new healing high-rise.
When I was 10 years old, I fell down a 25-foot hay chute that landed in a sitting position on a concrete landing, compressing my spine. I underwent my first back operation in 1971, a second one in 1972, a third one in 1979, a fourth one in 1984, a fifth one in 1992, and a sixth in 2002. With each surgery, the pain just got worse. I lived in pain my entire life. I lived on Tylenol with codeine 4. I took them like candy. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which was another devastating blow, and my response to that was, God, how much can I take? I was totally wheelchair bound for 5 years. EFT brought me out of the wheelchair, put me on arm crutches, which my doctor said would never happen. Went from arm crutches to giving up Social Security disability and returning to work.
I see EFT cure things that are incurable all the time.
When it comes to the MS, I'm completely cured. It's gone. It's non-existent in my body. I'm 54 and I'm doing jumping jacks now.
I'm not saying by that we cure everything in a minute or two and in a session or two and so on, and some things take a lot longer than others, but we get astonishing results often.
So what we're going to do today is take a finger prick of blood from a few different people. We're going to take a look at it under a dark field microscope and actually look at what their live blood looks like. A person that's healthy, their live blood will look like a clean flowing river, and a sick person, clumping in just a murky swamp. Of those 6 people, 3 had blood picture that looked like there's some health issues that should be addressed. So we had those 3 people go through about 5 minutes of EFT.
This anger.
All this resentment.
We drew their blood again, looked at it, and saw just total different blood pictures. No sign of clumping. I was speechless. When I could finally think again, I thought, I'm going to go home and just take my certificates, my degrees that took me years to get, and just tear them up and just, let's learn about this EFT. Normally, as a nutritionist, I would have put you on 2 or 3 months of mineral supplementation, but EFT, 5 minutes,
People on the outside, they look at some of the things we do as miracles, and I'm not really a miracle worker at all, or, you know, it's just the body will tend to heal itself if its energies are allowed to flow. The biggest thing that blocks that flow of energy is how emotional issues and past traumas are held in the body.
So we're getting to the core. That's why you can use it for everything.
Addiction issues.
Shame issues, vision issues,
Chronic fatigue, fear of flying,
Atrial fibrillation,
cravings,
diabetes, diverticulitis, post-traumatic stress disorder,
abundance,
it's easy to lose weight,
Public speaking.
insomnia.
performing in any capacity.
You can go from zero desire to hot and ready.
For the first time, I can probably say I truly and genuinely like myself, love myself, have acceptance.
People ask me what kind of antidepressants I'm on, and I say EFT. You know?
I do believe anything is possible now because I've seen it. One that was really fun to do was the vision experiment I did. 75% had an improvement in their vision. I keep getting emails from people, by the way, Carol, you know, I'm not using my glasses to look at the piano music anymore.
EFT is the best thing I found, hands down.
One of the great things about EFT is it's easy to learn by anyone.
EFT gave me the tools to cure myself.
And now I probably have seen over 2,000 clients of every walk of life on every imaginable problem with about a, 98%, maybe 99% success rate. And it's not me, it's EFT.
I thought, well, I don't know if I believe this, but what if I just suspended my disbelief?
Well, the manual is a free download on our website because I want the world to know how to do it. Do you want more than that?
There we go. All right, I'm going to stop sharing for a bit because I know that was a lot, and I'd like to know if you guys have any comments or questions. Did anybody else think it was like an infomercial? Okay, go ahead. Yes. There are all these things that when I first got into this, I was like, yeah, whatever. It's just, they just want money. Like, this has to be right. But then, like Gary Craig is saying, it's a free download, which you will get the links for all this. So they're not making any money off of that. And so I was like, well, what else could there be? Well, maybe because someone would be certified. Well, yeah, you pay to be certified, but that's your choice, right? Otherwise, you can use it yourself. So, but I'd love to know any other comments or questions you guys might have so far about this training or about what you just watched.
I have to be honest, Ann. I'm watching that and I hear people say multiple sclerosis was cured and all that. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm a skeptic. Maybe I should be like her and be a non-skeptic because I'm like, well, will it work with my lupus? And maybe I should become a non-skeptic first.
Thanks, Willis.
Yeah, that was the part that was hard to take in, was the physiological, the changes that happen. That was, even though I know that that's part of what we're doing sometimes when we're doing emotional regulation, we're trying to, bring down heart rate, control our breathing, we're trying to work on those things. So I guess there could be a connection there, but,
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I was just going to speak as a non-skeptic. I really love like holistic techniques and different things that you can do. And I think our bodies and our brains can do things that we're not even aware of. So I think it's really exciting.
Well, again, I wanted to show you the video because that's the founder. I think it's important for you to be able to hear from him, right, firsthand. But I want you to use your own personal thoughts about this, right? So if you're feeling like this is, I don't know, this is a little woo-woo, whatever, don't lose value to that, right? Because that's why you need to look at this and try it, but don't think you're going to automatically have the results that, who knows? You never know. So, but I'm not ever going to make a claim that it's going to work for everybody. I know I have personally seen great value, and I've also helped numerous people with this, but I'm not going to say it's going to help everybody. So It's just one of those things that just a new way of trying stuff. But I wanted you to see kind of how it is, like I said, evolved. A little bit of cognitive behavioral therapy stuff going on, changing those irrational thoughts you might have, and how your body holds that score, like the book says, and actually keeps some of that trauma and some of the other stuff going on. But who knows? So we'll continue on, and then you might see if you change your viewpoint or if you're still right there. So
In the chat you had Tim said it's too good to be true, question mark. One person said, I agree, a bit scary. And then another person says, I have several autoimmune disorders and chronic pain. If this works, then heck yeah.
I like that.
I was interested in improving eyesight by 75%.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So I have this, I've had this crazy rash for over a month now, and I hope I'm not usually a complainer. I don't know, maybe I am, but I feel like I'm not. And I've actually been complaining about this a lot. And so I have been doing EFT, and it has helped tremendously with the itching. But I still have to do it every day. But then the rest of the day is better. So again, it's totally, I'm not going to say it's going to work for everybody. So, but that's why for EFT, there are building bridges, and this is an important part. So if you do want to try this for yourself, or you want to introduce this to somebody else, you're going to be very skeptical, like maybe you are, and so you're going to have to explain it in a way that they're willing to give it a try. And so this is where we use building bridges, because that EFT can seem very unconventional. You're just tapping on your acupuncture points while talking about an issue, and then that's going to relieve emotional and physical discomfort. That's not always easily just accepted by people. It is helpful to develop these connections and help people to be able to understand the concepts that they may not understand EFT, but they understand some of the other ways to explain it. And so one of the ways for building the bridges, so you think about the bridges. So the first one is kind of like, you think it's like, hypnotherapy, but adds extra power to the process because it integrates the body's subtle energies, and it integrates beautifully the hypnotherapy. It allows the process even deeper. So I wanted to read that's what Gary Craig has been saying. It's like talk therapy. The advantage is it allows us to get to the issues faster and resolves them more thoroughly. It enhances massage therapy by adding an important emotional relaxation process. It blends perfectly with cognitive behavioral therapy because it brings the issues faster, it creates more deeper cognitive shifts that you'll see. And once we get to that, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And then it's like systematic desensitization that could happen. And then also can enhance the chiropractic work. Craig Warner, who again I said is one of my mentors, he is a chiropractor, and he uses this alongside with his chiropractic work. Just some examples. So I want to get into some of the other ways to build bridges that are maybe more practical for you. And then some of the brain science that goes along with this. So we're going to, again, get into these building bridges, get into how do I explain this and what is it all about. So one of the first one is talking about EFT as an energy medicine. So, why is that doing that? Okay, there we go. So if you're going to try to do EFT with somebody and they're like, I don't understand what you're saying, maybe there's somebody that has heard of energy through your body. Things such as they've had MRIs, they have EEGs, they've had EKGs, they've had EMGs. Those all energy throughout your body. So maybe they would understand, oh yeah, I understand now how energy must work because I've had those tools and they've showed me what was going on in my body. So that makes sense that there's energy going throughout my body. And so that would be a way that you could explain that to a potential person that you want to do EFT with. And then recent studies have begun to document the subtle energy fields like the meridians. As someone has, like the one that was shown in the video, where they actually took the blood and then they showed how the blood looks different. They've also done the same kind of studies where they're showing how the energy changes during MRIs before and after someone did EFT, and being able to show that there was a shift and a change that happened after EFT. Another one is looking at the brain hierarchy and what that looks like. So, when we think about that, we all know that our thoughts affect how we feel and how we react. So, and here's an example of a story, right? So bear with me. I'm going to read you a story. I want you to kind of imagine this. A group of people visit the Grand Canyon. So we can all imagine the Grand Canyon, and they stand at the guardrail to view the scene. And some are touched and impressed, and very impressed by the immense beauty of it. They feel gratitude and awe. Others immediately feel afraid of the height which they are standing, and others feel overwhelmed by the huge openness, and they retreat to their cars for safety. Others are reminded of some event from their past that involved heights and something larger than themselves. Open spaces, groups of people, and guardrails become some way that upsets them, and they have a negative, emotional, or uncomfortable physical feeling that upsets them. Others may be impressed by the beauty, but immediately think of someone who they lost, and they wish they could share that memory with. And then not all have the same level of upset as you go through this. So, as I was talking about, some responses might be mild, some moderate, and others feel so negatively that they had to immediately leave the scene. The point is that no two people have the same reaction to the exact same event. So, just like looking at the Grand Canyon, imagining that all the other events that we experience in our lives, no two people experience it in the same way. And so some people enjoy the beauty or fine. Those with negative thoughts about the part of you in the Grand Canyon experience an energy disruption, which causes the physical or emotional discomfort. And your internal response to any situation is determined by your past experiences. And the reason why the brain is on here is how you're processing the information. So as the information goes throughout your brain and how you're processing, and you're using either your cortex and the higher order thinking, your limbic system where your emotions and memories are, and then you have your primitive and the instinctual brain, the survival. If you've had experiences where things are caught in some of those areas of your brain, and the way you perceive things naturally goes through that filter, it's going to interact with many of how you are perceiving things. And so the way that you would introduce EFT is this will help with some of that potentially. It's going to help hone into how you may see the world and how your perception is and how it goes through the brain. All right, so then the next bridge we're going to talk about, EFT is a simple to use a stress reduction techniques. And so this is the one actually I use more than anything, is I'll say, try it. It might help with your stress. It might help you feel less overwhelmed by the things happening. And so that's an easy way that I will talk about EFT. Another one is it's like acupuncture without needles. So use your fingertips to physically tack on acupuncture, the hands, face, upper body, that are close to the surface of the skin. So again, I'm trying to introduce EFT in a way that might help someone understand. And this might be one way that I'm going to do that. Another way is a way to regulate the fight, flight, and freeze response using a somatic stimulation. So again, this could be I mentioned earlier the story of the Grand Canyon, and some people had that fight response or flight response where they had to get out of the area. This would be a way to introduce, hey, you remember when you told me about how you had this reaction? EFT might be able to help you with having that reaction, and it might not be so overwhelming when you think about that situation next time. It's just getting to know the person and figuring out what's a way that you might be able to introduce it to them so they have a basic understanding of what you're trying to accomplish using EFT. And then a bridge it's an evidence-based intervention that can be applied as a self-regulation tool or as a clinical therapeutic approach facilitated by a trained professional. So this is where, if you're going through the certification and you're able to then use it as a clinical approach, this could be one way that you're going to introduce it eventually. And I wanted to show you this picture because in the background there's Alina. There's my mentor, Alina Frank. So that's what she looks like. Okay, so there we talked about the bridge, and we talked about what is EFT, and now we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual science, research, and how it is all set up. When we're going through this, you're going to hear me say the discovery statement. The discovery statement is the basis of that first, when we're setting up EFT, it's kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy. Our main approach, our main thing we're looking at is, do I have an irrational thought? And what is setting up that irrational thought? How's it affecting my thoughts and feelings? For EFT, you're looking at I want to get to a discovery statement. And it's basically the cause of all negative emotions is a disruption in the body's system. So we're trying to help get to that. What is my negative emotion and how is it disrupted my body's energy system? All right, so science then. So we want to look at, I'm sorry, I should talk a little bit about too, like when we're talking about the energy flow throughout our body, EFT helps when there's basically like a clog in that system. When you think about something not working properly, not getting all the way throughout your body, that disruption. And so we're trying to figure out, how do I help to get that back so the energy can run throughout my body again and my body can heal itself. Research. So this was also a huge part for me. I had to see the research. I was a huge skeptic. I'm not going to believe things just because I see a YouTube video or someone told me it worked for them. I need to read it and see that people actually did lots of studies about it. And so this slide shows one of some of the researches. You're going to get a link that is going to have a link to much more current research on this field. So if you're one of those people that you have to read it for yourself and read like, what was the study made up? Was it just 2 people in the study? Of course it was successful. Or how many people did they actually study? What did they actually go through? Was it actually a meta-analysis? What happened? So was it randomized? All this stuff. So this just shows a little bit about that. And there's a lot of research that's published in Energy Psychology, which is its own journal. Some of you may have heard of it before. So that's where this is coming from. But there are, like I mentioned, a ton of research behind it. So, all right, I guess I'll keep going because I want to get to where we're practicing stuff. I think it's really important for you to have hands-on when we're talking about EFT. So we're going to keep going for a little bit. All right. So I talked a little bit about this already, but acupoint tapping, it's effective at treating a range of clinical conditions. And what happens is this tapping, the results can be very rapid compared to conventional treatments. So what might happen is someone might, and Stacey, you shared a great example. Someone was overwhelmed with their emotions and, just tapping on them, they were able to de-escalate. Where traditional types of therapy, it might take hours for someone to, dysregulate enough. So it just depends on the person, but it really can have a rapid, you can get rapid results of it. It has a lot of durable benefits, produces biological markers, critical ingredient for the demonstrated clinical effects that might happen. And then talking about the brain, how there are actually, and I was talking about some of the MRIs, CAT scans that can be done, that they've actually been able to show that when they are using EFT, that different parts of the brain are sending different signals. So it's really cool. And again, that research link that I'm sending, you guys can definitely look at that and see for yourself what I'm talking about. And I'm sure you could probably also do YouTube videos that will share that information too. So, and I showed earlier the picture of the brain and how it showed the amygdala where we have our feelings and reactions in our brain. So by doing the acupoint tapping, it can calm the signals that are in the amygdala. So with repeated sessions of EFT, what will happen is deactivating signals will outweigh the activating signals of a stress response. And so it's pretty cool how that can happen. And then neural imaging has shown the effects that can happen sometimes instantaneously, which may account for rapid improvement in symptoms. So again, just talking a little more about the brain and how that might change throughout the EFT process. It also can help with memory. And again, you're going to see this when you're looking at the research itself. It can lead to a more regulated system. And then also it helps with reconstructing those neural circuits. when maybe you've gotten caught where here's an example, right? I'm not a fan of spiders. Gotten better, but it used to be my reaction to spiders was to jump on top of the table. So, or yell for my boys to come kill the spider, something, right? Like, now, thankfully, I'm a little bit more calm about it, but that's what happens, right? Then your brain, it's irrational, but your brain has run its circuits that it immediately goes to that. Oh, spider, this is my reaction. And so then EFT helps to be able to recreate and change those circuits. So it's not the same pattern anymore. It also decreases that physiological stress that can happen as well. So things like heart rate, blood pressure, immune function, stress hormone, cortisol. And so that's where there's a lot of EFT research on weight gain, on cravings, high blood pressure, heart issues that might happen. So, and then there's also one of the people in my training group, she uses EFT for addiction with really great results. So, there's a lot of stuff out there that could potentially help with the brain, but there's, like we mentioned, we talked about this a little bit, and it was in the video earlier. And then I just put in just some overview for the research, this nice little, this is one of the training slides that Alina has shared. Basically, cortisol can go down, immune marker systems go up, pain down, anxiety down, depression down, PTSD symptoms actually increase happiness, decrease blood pressure, and decrease food cravings. So, there's a lot more for the research. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this because you guys can look for yourself. And if you're like me, someone else could tell me the research says this. I'm not going to believe you until I look at it myself. So you'll have you have the list, you will, for all the research that you can actually do your own, looking for all that information. Then we're going to talk a little about the SUDS. So you guys know what the SUDS is, right? We talked about that many times on this. And so for EFT, we use a scale 1 to 10. So 10's the worst. And the idea is we want to get from 10 to 0, right? So, but you have to figure out where you're coming from. So when we do our setup, we always include what's the SUDS score going on. So you'll see that, and many of you guys hopefully know SUDS, and this shouldn't be a new thing, but we're basically, it's the individual person's opinion of where they're at in that moment at that level. So, it's for them to decide. Sometimes this is hard for people to actually put a number on it. So then you can use a traffic light sign. You could use, okay, is it green, yellow, or red? You could say, is it mild, moderate, or high? It doesn't really matter. The idea is that the person that you're working with is able to identify, a kind of a general area of what the SUDS is. And then most importantly, if there's a decrease in that SUDS as you're going through EFT. And this just showed SUDS. You guys know what I'm talking about when I say that. When we go through EFT, you're going to be tapping on negative thoughts, your emotions, and then the physical discomfort that goes with it. So an example would be, I'm feeling depressed. Remembering tomorrow is the anniversary of my dad's death, and I feel this in my lower back. That would be an example. And here are all the tapping points. So we're going to go through this a little bit. So, Gabby, can you share in the chat, or did you already email everybody the handouts?
No, I don't think you emailed me the handouts for me to provide to them.
Yeah, I sent it to you. I saw it was the response to because it was all Stacy and Beth were also on the email.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so get your hands together, please. Everybody should have their hands free. We're going to practice this a little bit. So you can use however many fingers you want. I usually use 2 fingers. And honestly, a lot of this, it doesn't have to be exactly to a certain area. It's just a matter of the general area. I'll take my glasses off so you can see. So the first one is the top of the head. So if everybody could tap the top of their head. And I'm going to actually stop sharing because I'll just go through these points with you guys and show you. Okay, top of the head. You guys got it? Okay. Anybody questions about where it is? See, it's just top of the head. You can either do the whole hand, you can do fingers, doesn't really matter. All right, then we're gonna do what is called our eyebrow point. So about right here, so eyebrow point. Then you're gonna do the side of the eye. So about this side right here, side. Then you're gonna do under your eye. And then you're gonna do under your nose. And then you're gonna do your chin under your mouth. And then you're going to do your collarbone. So you can feel your collarbone. So it's either like right here, you can do your fingers on your collarbone, or if you want to just do your whole hand and just pat. The next one's a little different. It's under your arm. So I'll try to show. So basically it's the top of your bra for women, and you're just going to tap right there. So these are the main meridian points. So one of the handouts, and I don't know if you had a chance to put in there yet, Gabby, if I should share this one, but it's going to look like this tapping chart. Okay, so I wanted you guys to have this because people will say, well, why do I tap for this, whatever? You'll have that to look at. So there are some benefits to tapping on certain parts of your body. So like I didn't show you guys the karate chop. Sorry, the karate chop's right here. It's the side of your hand. So, the karate chop, for if you are doing acupuncture, the karate chop helps with your small intestines, right? So this paper will show you all the different meridian points and maybe where you're tapping, what that might do. It also will have a number beside it. And so some people say, well, if you do it this many times, that's when you're going to get the full benefit. My mentors don't have that same feeling. They just think whatever's comfortable, as long as you're going through the rotation of one of the rounds, and then you have a perfect setup statement. So that's kind of the approach I'm going to take, but I wanted to give you this paperwork, so you can look it up. I don't want to say it's research, it's someone else's handout, but that's basically what they're looking at is that information. So, all right, so we're going to go through it again. I want you to go through all the tabs. Sorry, go ahead.
Someone had a question in the chat. Doesn't matter which side you tap on.
Yeah. Question in the chat. Okay.
Doesn't matter what side you tap on.
No. And actually, it doesn't matter if you do one or two hands. I like to use two hands. I don't know why, but I think, I'm getting a better benefit of it. But it doesn't matter. It's your comfort level. So we're going to do another round so you guys can have an idea. So normally, you're going to start with the karate chop as we do our setup statement. So just follow along. And then we're going to actually practice it. A setup statement. So top of the head. Eyebrow. Side of the eye. Under the eye. Under the nose. Under the mouth or chin. Collarbone. And then under the arm. Oh, you guys did it. Good job. So, any questions about the actual positions for tapping?
You said to go through a full round. So like, do you did that a number of times or just one time, or does it matter? Or
yeah, I'm going to show you. I'm actually going to take you through the setup statement and around, so you'll know what I'm talking about. But thank you.
Okay, no, thank you.
Is it better to always be in a sit-in position doing this?
No, not at all. It's really, so one of the things, good question though. It's your comfort level and the person you're working with comfort level. Some people can't ever get out of their chair, right? So they're always sitting. So then you just figure that out. But then it's also, if someone's really anxious and they can't sit still, just try it, right? And sometimes you sit longer at a position. So this tapping on the side of your hand is actually it's one of the regulators for someone that's overwhelmed and stressed. Like, you just keep doing this, just keep tapping on the side of the karate chop area, and then eventually you move on. But good question. What other questions? So sometimes people will say, because I've had some clients before where they couldn't reach their under their arm. Then you just don't do under your arm. Just do the other stuff. Do what you can, right? So that's fine to do it that way. And we're not going to get to this today, but I'm probably going to do a part 2, and then it talks about what if someone can't tap at all, and the whole idea that you can actually tap on yourself for them. You can also use other tools to tap. So it's pretty cool. So, because you can actually tap, she didn't mention that in the video, but she mentioned her sister's cat has diabetes and kind of laughed about it. But I actually learned how to tap on myself for my dog. So I know, another woo-woo thing, right? But hey, if it's doing something, it's doing something. Anyway, we're going to do a round of this. So a setup. And so Gabby is going to be my client. So Gabby, do you have a situation, something that you could tell me about that maybe you have that you'd like to talk about today or like to tap on today?
Too many tasks to complete.
Okay, too many, and that is, so when you're doing the setup statement, you want to try to get specific. So task complete today, when? Like when specifically?
Completing all tasks that were required to be done by end of day. Yes.
End of day. Okay. End of day today. All right. And is there an emotion attached to that?
Overwhelm, anxiety.
Okay. So overwhelmed and anxiety. So you want to try to be as specific as possible. Is one of those more stronger than other, overwhelmed or the anxiety?
Overwhelmed.
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10's the worst, where would you put the overwhelmed?
Probably an 8.
An 8, okay. And what would you like it to be?
At least by a 4.
Okay. Okay. And then you said you're feeling overwhelmed about tasks to get ready to get done by the end of today. Are you feeling this anywhere in your body?
Probably more so probably either my chest or my lower back.
Okay. Or either one of those worse than the other?
My lower back.
Okay. How about if we go with lower back then?
Okay.
Okay, so when we do the setup statement, you usually end with, I deeply and completely accept myself. Okay, so I'm going to set this up. If Gabby says, well, that doesn't fit for me, then we'll have to change something. But it's always about the person you're working with and what they're comfortable with. So how it's going to work is I'm going to have Gabby do everything I'm doing and repeat after me. There is an amazing concept called borrowing benefits that if you as the audience practice and do this alongside of Gabby, it actually is going to help you feel a little bit better. So I really want you guys to do it with me. So if you could either talk to yourself or mute yourself, but you're going to say exactly what Gabby says, and you're going to do the tapping just alongside of her. Okay, so we're going to try this. So All right. So, Gabby, let's start. We're going to start tapping, doing the karate chop. And then you just repeat right after me. Okay. Even though I feel this overwhelm.
Even though I feel this overwhelmed.
And I feel this in my lower back.
And I feel this in my lower back.
When I think about all the tasks I have to get done today.
When I think about all the tasks I have to get done by end of day.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Does that all seem true for you?
Yes.
Okay. So we do this 3 times. Okay, so we're going to do it again. Even though I feel overwhelmed.
Even though I feel overwhelmed.
I have a lot of tasks to get done today.
I have a lot of tasks I need to get done today.
And I'm feeling this in my lower back.
And I'm feeling this in my lower back.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I feel overwhelmed.
Even though I feel overwhelmed.
I have a lot of tasks to get done today.
I have a lot of tasks to get done today.
And I feel it in my lower back.
And I feel it in my lower back.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay, now we're going to move to the actual tapping point. So top of the head. And Gabby, you're going to repeat after me. This overwhelm.
This overwhelmed.
Eyebrow. This overwhelm.
This overwhelmed.
Side of the eye. This overwhelm in my back.
This overwhelmed in my back.
Under your eye. This overwhelm.
This overwhelmed.
Under your nose. This overwhelm.
This overwhelmed.
Under your mouth. This overwhelmed.
This overwhelmed.
Collarbone. This overwhelmed.
This overwhelmed.
Under your arm. This overwhelmed my back.
This overwhelmed my back.
Okay, now please take a drink of water. And then we check in. So Gabby, is it still associated with having to get a lot of tasks done by the end of today?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Is it still associated with having to get a lot of tasks done by the end of today?
Yes.
And is it still overwhelmed?
Not as much.
Okay, so tell me, what would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 now?
I would say probably 5.
Okay. And is it still in your lower back?
Yes.
Okay. Did that change at all? Does it feel the exact same in your lower back?
It's not as prominent.
Okay. Okay, so then we're at a 5. She wants to get to a 4, but we're moving. So then we would do another round. And then we would check in again to see how she's doing. So thank you, Gabby. I know she agreed to do this. I appreciate that. I want to open it up to ask you guys if you had any questions about what just happened, or even what happened within yourself if you did practice alongside of her.
I think I felt just overall just feeling a little bit calmer. Like going through the ritual, hearing the talking, going through, I definitely could feel like my shoulders kind of detense, I guess,
Thanks, Stacey.
if it's a word.
I can agree as well. I'm sorry. I can agree as well, especially with the last sentence of I accept myself. I think once I said that, it was kind of like a woo-saw kind of went over me. So yeah, I felt really good to, I don't know, get the feeling of like relaxing. Good.
I think you have to believe the last part when you say I completely accept myself, because you can do everything else, but if you do the wording of it and you don't, then I don't think it will do much.
Good point. I've had people use all kinds of different endings. Like one of them was, you know, Jesus loves me, right? Like I don't love myself, but he does. So whatever, like you figure out the person you're talking to, what might work. So, or they might say, I'm learning to like myself, or, you know, whatever's going to work for that person. The deeply and completely accept myself is just kind of the common ending for the setup statement. But you have to make sure it holds true to the person. So the other thing that happens a lot is there's shifting aspects that might happen. So, you know, Gabby had mentioned that she felt both overwhelmed and anxiety. Sometimes through doing this, all of a sudden the anxiety becomes much more prevalent. And that's what takes over, right? And so then you just start tapping on that. It also is, she's like overwhelmed by the task. It may be that one task in particular is really in her mind. And so then we're able to focus and just tap on that situation. So a lot can happen, and it is really cool how your body will do that. And you won't even realize how that's happened. Why am I now thinking about this? I don't know. But that's all part of shifting aspects that can happen in EFT. So that was what we're talking about as far as the setup and the tapping point. So now you guys are all going to try it, unless there's other questions or comments. And I think I saw something in the chat.
Yeah.
Yes, you can switch the hand. That is fine. You don't have to wait until a round is done. You can shift the hand, no problem. All right, so I want everybody to think about, you're thinking in your mind here. Got myself out of order here. Well, I don't see it on here, but basically you're going to think about a scary movie or a movie that you know you had a response to. I normally think of Jaws because even though I know Jaws is like not real, it impacted my life. I wouldn't even go to a swimming pool. It was like there's a shark in there. So a movie that you know had or still does have a response to you where you're like, just from thinking about a scene in a movie that you know, most of the time I would say it's fear that would come up, but something like that where you had a response in a recent movie or show that you watched. So I'll give you a little bit to think about that. If you're able to, I'd love for you to write down the name of the movie, or even if you can't think of the name of the movie, but you just remember a scene, a little description for yourself about that. So go ahead and write that down. All right, does everybody have something? Anybody need any help? It could be what you see on the news lately too, or something that you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And that was pretty strong, my reaction that I had for it. So, all right, now that's there, I want you to think about what emotion came up. And you're going to rate it 1 to 10, 10's the highest. So again, if you can write that down, the emotion and the intensity, that would be great. And then also identify, did you feel it anywhere in your body? And please write that down. You should have the SUD score down. You should have where you're feeling it in your body down. All right, we're going to tap. So you're just going to tap along with me, and you're going to, you know, if I'm asking you to say something, you just can say it, you know, be muted, but say it, please. So you're getting the most out of this. So we're going to start by the karate chop. Even though I feel fear when I think about Jaws and that scene where Jaws bit into the boat, and I feel this in my belly, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I feel, and say your emotion, about your movie scene, and I feel it in where at in your body, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I feel about, and I feel this in my body, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then we're going to move to the tapping. So top of the head, you tap, and you say the emotion. So this, fear, or whatever it is, this. And then you move to the eyebrow, this, fear. Side of the eye, you can add this fear in my belly, or add the body part to it, but keep it simple. Under your eye, this, fear. Under the nose, this, fear. Under the, oh, I said under the mouth, this, fear. Collarbone, this, fear. And then under your arm, this, fear. You take a drink of water. All right, now write down how intense you're feeling that emotion and where in your body you're feeling it. And now let's open it up. I'd love to hear from you guys if your SUDS changed, if there was any shifting aspects, anything that happened.
My SUDS changed. Go ahead. And my focus of my body changed. It went from my shoulders to kind of my back, my lower back.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to say almost exactly the same thing. The score changed and mine went from my shoulders to more like my spine, like the center of my back. Just so weird.
Yeah, thank you. Did anybody's emotion or SUDS go down?
Mine did. When you mentioned the spider, I thought of a centipede because I was scared of spiders at first and got over it. But yeah, centipedes, as soon as I thought of it, I felt it in my head, but it did go away.
It's good. Sorry for bringing that out, Lynetta.
I actually feel a little more anxious and focused.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened in the first one too, where like my energy and focus tremendously increased in the first one. And then with this one, the anxiety kind of increased a little bit with the focus.
Thank you, Jen. That is awesome. I'm not glad you're experiencing that, but good awareness. So that can happen. Absolutely, especially if you maybe were kind of a little distracted when you got started, and then all of a sudden now you're really focusing, it can actually make it worse and then get better. So then what would happen is you would do another round of tapping on that same thing. And you could even say, this increased fear, you know, and then like, so your body is having a reaction. I also noticed quite a few of you yawning. That's actually awesome, which is one of the hardest things for me because, you know, you don't want to yawn in session and all this stuff, right? Well, EFT, if you're yawning, it actually means that your body is releasing some of the tension. So it's a really good sign. So don't feel bad about yawning in the midst of EFT.
I had 2 questions, Anne.
Yeah.
The urge to fight closing my eyes,
Mm-hmm.
that was intense, just FYI. Is that normal? And then the other one is when you're actually doing this alone, are you supposed to say that script out loud or just thinking it? Which one's more effective?
Either one is fine. Either one is fine. So the nice thing about saying it out loud, I don't know. I just feel like you're kind of hearing it twice, right? It's out loud, not just in your head. So, but either one. As far as closing your eyes, so I didn't talk about that yet. So, usually we encourage people to not close their eyes because we don't know enough about our clients to know if they've had a trauma history. And by having them close their eyes, it could actually make them have a more trauma response. And we don't know each other yet, right? So, but if you're doing this and you want to close your eyes, go right ahead. If you're feeling safe enough to do that, then that's fine. That's completely fine.
Could
Okay,
this be used with nonverbal clients? I'm sorry.
Yes, no, that's a great question. Absolutely. Yes, it could definitely can. So, a couple of different levels. So, you want to look at their cognitive level, where they're at. Are they understanding what's going on? But as they could think about it, you know, that's fine as long as they're thinking about it. Then they don't ever have to verbally say it. You can also use other objects. So, and I was going to introduce this today. So, I have a little monkey. You guys all see the monkey? And it has tapping points on it. So this is a really good tool to use with kids or people that quite don't like cognitive. Maybe they're having a hard understanding it. So, you know, maybe for some of our clients with developmental disabilities, right? They might be able to use it, but and also you can not just use a teddy bear or whatever. You could use a piece of paper that has the picture of somebody or our tapping point picture, right? That you guys all have now, that you could have the person point to it as you're going through it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can modify EFT. Yes. Yeah.
What if the client doesn't have good use of their mobility? Could we tap on them or?
So you can. The issue with that is the trauma response, right? That's a big deal. You're in their face, right? You're touching them. So I instead would maybe help them to imagine either they're touching this part of their body, or that's where I would start with first maybe a piece of paper or something else where they're imagining it. Because you guys know our brain is amazing. We could not even just be touching it and we're imagining we're touching it, and we can fool our brain that we really are. So, you know, try that first. And then, yeah, eventually you could get to the point where maybe they're comfortable enough to have you tap on them. But always with caution.
Here's a question. Why do you say to drink the water at the end? What is that supposed to do?
Yes, well, it helps to refresh you, right? By drinking the water. It also gives you a sense of pause where you're actually able to re-evaluate, where am I now? Instead of just going right to that, you're refreshing your body, and then you're also left, like I said, the pause. I always have everybody take a drink of water after every round. So the other thing is you're talking a lot, right? You don't want to be out of. So a normal EFT session is like 45 minutes for one issue. So what I would do, like for Jen, you said yours got worse, right? So then I would start again. We continue on. We'd see if it's the same issue, if there's been shifting aspects, but you go back to that same setup statement. You don't talk about anything as far as like, oh, well, actually I'll use Gabby's example. So she said she's overwhelmed at work, and that was one of her issues, right? Is what she had to get done today. As a therapist, I might say, tell me more about that. What's going on? Or I might try to validate the things she's been doing well. That's not EFT. EFT is you go back to the simple setup statement and you pinpoint in detail the small little section of what's going on. No matter, and you don't validate feelings. You go right to the point. And so that's where you're making sure you go back to focusing on it. They might share, hey, that reminded me of this. Okay, you're listening to that, but you don't go there, right? You might write it down, because with EFT, you're always looking for, was that a tabletop event, or is this a table leg that I'm just peeling back, right? Like maybe Gabby's overwhelm is related to, that she has this core belief that she's not good enough. And so that might come eventually, right? But in this one moment, I'm not going to get there yet. I'm going to talk about a specific incident that's happening, and it might affect in her overall how she's looking at things. All right, I'm going to go back to the slide here. You guys are doing great, by the way. Thank you for participating so far. Appreciate it. Okay. Hopefully you can see this so far. Okay, so we did this. You guys all know the tapping chart. So this is all in the chat that you can download, as well as I'm sure it'll be emailed to you. So you'll have this. This, just so if you're wondering, this is Craig Weiner. He's the one of my mentors. And so that's why I use his sheet, because I have so many of his stuff laying around. But that's where you're looking at the tapping points. Hopefully that's all clear to you. Again, the exact pinpoint measurement does not matter. It's the general area, and that's completely fine. If you want to use just 2 fingers, or if you're going to use your whole hand, doesn't really matter. It's the general area. The order doesn't really matter, honestly, either. If you're going to use tapping solutions, they have apps and stuff. They always start with your eyes and end with your head. It doesn't matter, just so it's a full circle. All right, so I talked about the setup statement, and you guys also have a handout with the setup statement in it. So you're always going to find a specific issue to target. So an event, or and the next slide I think goes through how do I do that? The current emotion, the intensity, locate in the body. You may not have it where they may say, I don't feel it in my body. Then you just skip that part. Okay, but you're going to have an emotion, and then you're going to be able to have a actual specific issue. You may not always have the body. And then the setup statement, again, is just even though, and all you do is fill in the blanks. So that's what you would do with your blanks. And then you have some kind of self-affirmation or self-acceptance. Basically, even though I feel this way, I still accept myself, right? And so that's how that setup statement happens. So every time you do EFT, you are going to use this setup statement every single time. That is the basis behind all EFT is a setup statement, is getting to the point where you can fill this out, and this is what you'll go through. So this is what I mean by being specific. You always want to look at who and where or time when you can see the scene. You want to make sure it's not global. So global would be, I know, Gabby, I keep using you as an example. Thank you. She's overwhelmed at work. That's way too global. It's not specific enough. So that's why I asked her to say what she needs to do today. So that's much more specific. The example here is my anger at Sue. More specific would be anger at Sue for leaving me alone last night. The more specific you can get, the better results you're going to get. Global is my disappointment with my son. Specific is disappointment with my son for bringing home a report card with an F in math last month. Very, very specific. Just 1 second. The other thing I wanted to say is another difference between EFT and regular traditional therapy is regular traditional therapy, we use a lot of paraphrasing, not saying exactly back to the client exactly what they said, but in EFT, you're actually going to do paraphrasing, where you're trying to use the client's exact words. So if it's, I'm overwhelmed, I have a lot to do today, you're going to say that. As much as possible, that paraphrasing is always better. All right, so here's the questions to get to be specific. When was the last time it happened? When will it likely happen again? When might you expect to feel that way again? Can you give me an example of what you mean? When do you think you decided that was true? Does it remind you of another time that was similar? You don't want to say the things like the first time it happened or the worst time it happened, because you want to be in the present. How is it affecting you right now? You thinking about an interaction you're going to have tomorrow is affecting you right now. And so that's what you want to look about. You don't want to say first or worse. And then we already did this movie scene practice. You guys did great by it, for example. And again, this is just that shortcut basic recipe preparation. I would encourage you to continue to practice this for yourself as you go through the day. Basically, what is my issue? What's my emotion? How do I rate this? Where am I locating this in my body? What's my setup statement? My reminder phrase. Same exact order every time you do EFT. Any questions about this setup statement at all? Okay. And basically, you're going to do it 3 times, like I mentioned. You're going to say the setup statement 3 times while tapping the side of the hand. You're going to tap the other acupoints by stating the reminder phrase. You'll re-rate the suds, and then you'll make adjustment and repeat as needed. And you might say this remaining, whatever emotion is, anxiety, overwhelm, fear, whatever is remaining, and then you just continue to tap through it. For EFT, the goal is to get to a 0. I know I asked Gabby where she wanted to get to, because we do set up SMART goals. When you're in the, like there's, in the beginning, it's always important to figure out, what do I want to work on today? What do I want to get to? You're still setting up SMART goals. But in knowing EFT, the goal is to get to a 0. So you don't want to stop until you get to a 0. If, for example, you get to the end of the session and you're still at, usually a 3 is where you stop, but I know today I let Gabby get to a 4. Then you do sneaking away. And I'll practice that with you guys in just a second. So that's the end of that shortcut recipe, and then you do the sneaking away. I wanted to show, how do you get EFT tapping trainings? I know I've talked about that before. There are lots of different places you can go through. I'm going through EFT International. And you can be, get certified, go through the training, whatever. Basically, I would encourage you to practice this yourself to see if it's got to be something you believe in order to get, obviously, to worry about going further in this. But they also have a ton of free resources, each one of these that you can look at and start being able to practice this yourself as you go through it. All right, so I want to then stop sharing. And we're going to go through another round of EFT. So before I do another round, do you guys have any questions?
There was one in the chat. Does the rhythm matter?
No. Yeah. Don't overthink it. It's okay. I mean, I wouldn't rush it. That would be uncomfortable, because remember, someone is repeating after you. So just a nice cadence. All right, so we're going to do another round, and I would like it if someone would like to be a volunteer. Tell me about something you might have in your mind, either the movie thing we just did, or something else where you can think of a specific event. Yes, thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. She asked about this in bilateral stimulation, basically EMDR. I didn't talk about that. Thank you. There's a lot of research that shows the same benefit from doing tapping as well as EMDR. It's really cool. So a lot of the same principles, and actually EMDR therapists, many EMDR therapists do EFT as well. So you can look that up too in some of the research that I had given you guys the link. You can see that information too. Thank you. Who wants to be willing to go out there and try to do some tapping with me? Anybody got a situation that maybe they would, not too personal, right? But yeah, good. A lot like EMDR, yes. Nice thing about this versus the EMDR, I will tell you the cost to be EMDR certified is much, much higher. Several $1,000s in lots of time. So this one is about, I would say probably $1,000. So comparatively, but you don't have to be certified to do a lot of the interventions. So just know that part too. All right, I'm waiting. Who thinks they have something they want to tap on?
I'll do it if nobody will do it.
Thank you, Wendy.
Welcome.
All right, so what's the situation you're thinking about for an event?
So it's kind of like your spider stuff. I have just a very irrational fear of snakes. I get scared to mow my grass just because I think I'm going to see a snake, and it's not the best thing.
So are you planning on mowing your grass in the near future?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So is that what you want to think about? Is the next time you're going to mow your grass?
Yeah.
Okay. And when will that be?
Either today or Sunday, depending on what I get done.
And so you said fear. Is that the right emotion?
Yes.
And what would you rate that at a scale of 1 to 10?
Like 10. It interrupts me. I have to stop sometimes.
Okay. And where do you feel it in your body?
Like when I'm thinking about it right now, it is like my my shoulders and my chest. I think it shows up different places at different times, but
yeah, but right now is where it's in your, okay. All right. So make sure I got that right, is you have a fear of snakes when you think about mowing your grass. The next time you'll do that is maybe today.
Yes.
And it's a 10, and you feel it mostly in your shoulders and chest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you guys all feel like that is specific enough? Like, did we go through, hang on. I want to make sure I'm using what I told you guys. Did we go to when it's going to happen again? Yeah, we talked about that. And then we talked about it's going to happen. Okay, it wasn't the first or worse, anything. It's okay. We got it. So what I'm going to do is I'm following, in case you guys want to know where I'm at, like I will follow the setup statement paperwork that you guys got in the chat that you could, you'll have that to be able to follow along and have the setup statement to know what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. Borrowing benefits. Please, everyone else, do this alongside of Wendy. Be there to support her, as well as see if you could get some benefits about anything going on in your life. So we're going to go ahead and start tapping. And if you guys could all tap alongside, I would appreciate that. All right, Wendy, you're just going to repeat after me. Okay. Even though I have this fear.
Even though I have this fear.
I'm afraid I'm going to see a snake when I mow the lawn later today.
I'm afraid I'm going to see a snake when I mow the lawn later today.
And I feel this in my shoulder and chest.
And I feel this in my shoulders and my chest.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Did that all sound true?
Yeah.
Okay. Even though I feel fear.
Even though I feel fear.
When I think about mowing the grass and seeing a snake.
When I think about mowing the grass and seeing a snake.
And I feel this in my shoulder and chest.
I feel this in my shoulders and chest.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I feel fear.
Even though I feel fear.
Thinking about seeing a snake today when I mow the grass.
Thinking about seeing a snake today when I mow the grass.
And I feel this in my shoulder and chest.
I feel this in my shoulder and chest.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay, now we're going to go to the tapping points, top of the head. This fear.
This fear.
Eyebrow. This fear of snakes.
This fear of snakes.
Side of the eye. This fear.
This fear.
Under the eye. This fear.
This fear.
Under the nose. This fear of snakes.
This fear of snakes.
Under the mouth. This fear.
This fear.
Collarbone. This fear in my shoulder.
This fear in my shoulder.
Under the arm. This fear.
This fear.
Okay, take a drink. And now let's check in. How are you doing, Wendy? Where are you feeling this now? Is it still a fear of snakes, thinking about mowing the grass today?
It was weird. It shifted about around the third time we said it on the karate chop, because I didn't even like saying it the first two times. I hated saying it, and then it was like, I'm just saying it. It's okay. When I think about it now, I don't like right in this present moment. It doesn't have the same body reaction that usually happens to me. I even think about a snake.
Okay. So where would you rate it, that fear on a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't know. Well, I don't feel in my body like I usually feel it to make me know that I'm scared of it. So, I mean, it's different in my body now. So I don't feel it in there. Like when I think about it, it feels a lot more logical.
Okay. So do you still have fear?
Yeah, I'm assuming I do. I don't feel it right now. I mean, I typically used to feeling that, but I like when I think about it now, it's not making me, I like feel so scared usually if I just even think about it. Like, yeah.
Okay, so I want you to, let's do what's called, we have to check in, right? This is called a check-in. So think about, you're going to go outside and you're going to mow the lawn today. And then you see a snake.
There's a little bit of something there, but very little.
And what is it? What is it, fear or scared? Okay.
Scared.
And where would you rate that?
Like a 3.
Okay. And where are you feeling that in your body?
Underneath my ribs.
Okay. Good work. All right, let's go with that. Weird. We're going to tap. So even though I feel scared.
Even though I feel scared.
When I think about seeing a snake today.
When I think about seeing a snake today.
And I feel this under my ribs.
And I feel this under my ribs.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I'm scared.
Even though I'm scared.
I'm going to see a snake when I mow the lawn today.
I'm going to see a snake when I mow the lawn today.
And I feel this under my ribs.
And I feel this under my ribs.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I'm scared I'm going to see a snake.
I'm scared I'm going to see a snake.
When I mow the lawn today.
When I mow the lawn today.
And I feel this under my ribs.
And I feel this under my ribs.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
All right, top of the head. I'm scared.
I'm scared.
Eyebrow. This scared.
I'm just scared.
Side of the eye. This scared under my ribs.
This scared under my ribs.
Under my eye. This scared.
This scared.
Under my nose. This scared.
This scared.
Under my mouth. This scared under my ribs.
This scared under my ribs.
Collarbone. This scared.
This scared.
Under the arm. This scared.
This scared.
All right, take a drink of water. And let's check in, Wendy. So how are you still feeling scared?
A little bit. It depends on how I think about it.
Okay. Think about that you're going to see a snake today when you mow the lawn.
I don't love it.
So last time it was a 3. Where do you feel like it's now?
I feel like it's the same, maybe a little lower, maybe like a 2-ish.
Okay. And do you feel it under your ribs?
It started under my ribs. The first time we went through it, raised up a little bit when I said it, when I like focused on that thing, like when I said, I'm going to see a snake when I mow the lawn, it rose up, but only like a little bit. It's still like my mid ribs, not underneath them.
Okay.
But then it went back down when we went through the thing again.
Okay. Okay. Well, good work. All right. So for the process of EFT, normally if it's a 3 or lower, it's usually safe to move on, and we can do what's called sneaking away. If it is 4 or higher, we do a container, which means we box it up and imagine a container. And a lot of you have done that before with some of your clients and put it on a shelf for later. And so that technique takes a little bit longer. So that was going to be part of the part 2 for this, is to go through the container. So what I want to do is end yours, Wendy, with a sneaking away, because it is under 3. And then we could talk more about that. Okay. All right. So we're going to start. Even though I have some remaining scared.
Even though I have some remaining scared.
I was able to decrease some of this.
I was able to decrease some of this.
And I feel a little better.
And I feel a little better.
Even though I still have some remaining scared.
Even though I still have some remaining scared.
I was able to feel the pain shift.
I was able to feel the pain shift.
And it was amazing how I did that.
And it was amazing how I did that.
Even though I still have some of this remaining scared.
Even though I still have some of this remaining scared.
I was able to experience a shift.
I was able to experience a shift.
All right, now we're getting to tapping. I did good work today.
I did good work today.
Eyebrow. I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of myself.
Side of the eye. I did good work.
I did good work.
Under the eye. I was able to feel a shift.
I was able to feel a shift.
Under the nose. I did good work.
I did good work.
Under the mouth. I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of myself.
Collarbone. I did good work.
I did good work.
And under the arm. I did good work.
Did good work.
Okay. And then we would end because you were able to get below that threshold. So, all right, I want to open it up for questions. So we only got about 15 minutes, so we can definitely talk more about this. I'd love to know some of you that were very skeptical, if you're still feeling that way, if you're willing to give it a try. I also wanted to ask, we tentatively had planned on having this as a part 2. So I want to make sure that it's something you feel like you might be able to start using with your clients, that it'd be worth your time to invest in another 2 hours for a part 2. So give me your feedback. I'll try to look at the chat for questions. Yes, you can try these strategies without being certified. Absolutely. Cautiously. And I would definitely not go through anything with trauma. I would talk about a specific situation that's happening in the moment. So for example, my roommate stole my candy bar and I'm really angry. That would be a really great example. Something like that. Don't get too deep in it, because again, you don't know the person that well as how they're going to respond. But that would be okay. Yes, absolutely. Kim, good question. She said, I don't feel better or worse. Is there an average number of sessions for a client feels? It's completely different for each person, right? It is, I wish I could say it'd be the same every time you go through this. It's not going to be the same. And you'll find shifting aspects happening all the time. And a lot of times when someone's not making any progress, let's say it's now the 3rd session and they're not having any changes, you're probably not specific enough, because your body needs you to be specific enough in order for there to be a change. And so, go through some of those questions and figure out, am I being specific enough? So, all right. So please let me know your questions or comments and we can go from there. Willis said, I'm still a skeptic. I agree. It might take a few times to be able not to be. Thanks, Willis. I appreciate that. Yes. I hear you. I'm telling you, I was a worse skeptic. And then it started working and I'm like, maybe I need to look into this. All right. So yeah, Willis, be the next participant. I love it. So Lita says, of course, the tapping piece, but how is this different from imagery, imagined exposure? Oh, just the specific part of it, that you're being extremely specific and you're tapping on the meridian points. So the idea is the energy flow throughout your body, that you're helping to be able to restore the energy flow. So eventually what could happen, as you guys probably can imagine, as you get further along in this and you get more comfortable, you can help someone to actually tap through a really traumatic experience. And then, because there's other techniques. So the techniques the trauma techniques are going to be part 2, but it is stuff that you'll get to know your client, where they're at, how do you go about going things so you're not going to overwhelm them, and what do you do when they do become overwhelmed and they have that flooding. And so some of the techniques are taught in that. So do we only drink water in this exercise? Well, I mean, it's up to you if you want to drink water. I think water is the most refreshing thing. I wouldn't think you'd want to drink alcohol, but I always say water. So I'm not sure if that's what you were asking about. Please let me know your questions or comments. If the anxiety continues to go up, what would be the best way to end the session? Oh, thank you. The container, which is what we talked. So the container is when the score is 4 or higher, and and then let's say time constraints or whatever you have to end. Then you really start with the container to help that person feel safe. Sometimes you never actually get to the name of the event because it is too traumatic. And so some of the techniques are nameless trauma. And then you just have them go through and the flooding happens and you just start going through stuff. So you don't always even do the name because it's just too unsafe to do that and it's too overwhelming. But if the anxiety, or if a client has a panic attack as a result of thinking about the fears, is there a specific EF way to address? Yes, it's the tapping. So you just continue to go through the rounds without talking. So when I have a client that is they talk so fast and they're overwhelmed, just talking about it, I have them tap while they're talking to me. And we just tap together, and they talk to me and we tap together. And then we start going through the rounds. We're not talking about anything yet. We're just going through the tapping. And then eventually, the flooding is better and they're more regulated to be able to move forward.
I have
Yeah,
a question.
Yeah.
Because I know we did this Wednesday wellness. I do believe it's the same thing, and they did the lower body too. Is there more of it, like the legs and ankles and all that?
Do you know what he's talking about, Gabby?
Willis, can you refresh me? What do we do?
Well, you were on vacation, and we did something that we watched a video, and there was a lady who showed us all this tapping. But then also, I swear, I could be wrong, that they did our legs and our ankles and all that also.
There was 1 week there was an introduction to tapping.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
I do believe so, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like, the meridian points are throughout your body, right? So, I mean, you can do all that, but what EFT has done is figured out which ones are more associated with your thoughts, and that's why, in your emotions. So did anybody notice from borrowing benefits that they did borrow any benefits by tapping along with somebody else?
Wendy, did you feel my positive anti-snake energy going to you?
Maybe that's what happened. It was very interesting. Like, there were so many different small shifts, like when you're aware, like especially something like this, where in front of everybody, and definitely paying attention to all the little things that happen. It was really interesting. I mean, the repeat after me is real rough for me, but it was okay. And I think it would be better on a one-on-one situation, or like that said, you could just think it. If I'm doing it by myself and I can just think it, I like that idea too. But it was weird. It was interesting where I'm just being really aware of my body and where I'm feeling that emotion. And when it shifted, like I said, the first time when we went through, just having me even say I'm going to, like, that's how scared I am. Like, looking at their backgrounds with grass in it, I don't love it, because it's scary to me. And saying it out loud, I didn't even like saying it. But then the third time I said it, I was calm saying it. And then I kind of what Lita was talking about, there was visuals happening too. Like, I was thinking of certain visuals, but then they got lighter. They would be scary when I first thought about them, and they got lighter if I repeated them. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I would recommend that you do, it's totally up to you, Wendy, but maybe try to do some tapping when you're feeling yourself feel that anxiety when you go outside, to actually mow the lawn.
Yeah,
and then see
I
in
will.
the moment if it,
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
planning
what
on
do you
trying
got
it.
to lose, right?
Yeah, I'm planning on trying it when I do mow the grass, because it does sometimes, I mean, I know it's ridiculous, but it is sometimes very disruptive. I just, like, I'll see something shoot from underneath the lawnmower. I'm scared. I have to stop for a second and make sure I'm good. So, and I also talk about it a lot. I know it's irrational, but I mean, this fear sometimes will cause like neurological things. It causes me to stutter if I talk about it. The last time I saw a snake, I froze and freaked out. I mean, it's wild. So I'm gonna try it. I'll let you know. I'll let you know how it goes.
Thank you.
I'm not afraid of snakes, but now I'm afraid of mowing the grass. Just kidding, Wendy.
Yeah. Well, and I'm happy. I mean, I'd love for you guys to talk more in this forum. If not, feel free to reach out to me separately. I'm happy to give you guidance on this. I know that's why I said in the beginning, do you think this is woo-woo? Because it is, it can seem that way, but then again, don't just stay there. Look at the research behind it and look, well, what is happening when I tap my body? What is that? Oh, okay. Then it kind of makes sense as you go through this. So, but I don't want to practice, or I don't want to promise things. I want you guys to do your due diligence, maybe practice it, maybe look at some of the research, maybe figure out if there's a client that you might want to, just try it with them. What if you do, I would print out the handouts and use the handouts, and all you're doing is reading it word by word from your handout, right? You don't have to become an expert. you're gonna just, once you've identified the emotion, once you identify the body part, if it's there about a situation, you just write it out the same each time. So, Stacy.
I'm curious about the, the medical piece, that we were, hearing about earlier, because we kind of focused on that feeling and that emotion as we were tapping. Is it still based on feeling and emotion if it's trying to get rid of an actual physical, you know, hardship or whatever it might be?
One of the techniques is called chasing the pain. So there's an EFT technique called chasing the pain where there can or cannot be emotion involved. It could just be the physical pain that you go through. So, but good question. There just becomes more um, more options available. But most of the time when someone's having physical pain, they're able to identify emotion they have, even if it's just about the pain.
Yeah.
Right. So then you go with that and see what happens. I think someone put about part 2. I think we're going to record it just like this one's recorded. So if you can't make it, you can do that. So, and I'm happy to talk to you more about it if you've got questions about it. So anybody want to share if they changed their viewpoint at all or if they're still the same?
We do have a couple things in the chat that I thought were great questions.
Okay.
If anxiety continues to go up, what would be the best way to end the session?
Yeah, I think I talked about that. You would use the container is the best thing.
If a client has a panic attack as a result of thinking about the fear, is a specific EFT way to address anxiety. So kind of the same. And then I think I would have a different experience one-on-one with a therapist. I was kind of distracted by everyone else and myself on the screen, which why I had my camera off. And a lot of people are saying part 2 would be great.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of this too, is I know you guys are in the middle of this class, right? So, and what I would encourage you to do if you want to come to part 2 is think of something that you wouldn't mind practicing. So maybe it's you don't have motivation to exercise or something like that, something that's not too deep, right? But that we all have. So Lauren, I'm reading yours. It says, are there any diagnoses that this wouldn't be appropriate for? Are you talking more like, mental health diagnosis? Are you talking about physical or just in general? In general, okay. I mean, again, the trauma, this is a great intervention for trauma, but not right away. And making sure that the person is comfortable. So that's what I would say, like someone that has severe trauma, then it might not be the best approach right away if they're not able to understand what to happen if they are flooded with the emotions.
I did have a question. Like, I know I did understand, like, trying to see if the emotion had gone down, but as far as like seeing how it shifted in your body, is there a reason like you're trying to notate that or?
Yeah, because that's now the focus, right? So we always have to go with it. So we aren't gonna, just because like Wendy had originally said fear and it moved to scared, I'm not gonna stay with fear then. We're gonna go with what's now coming up in the body.
Got it. Okay.
And there's
as far as like how it moved in her body, like sometimes
Yeah.
it might have been in your
Yeah,
chest, but then it moved.
Yeah, so and I did talk about that too. Thank you. So you always, again, you want to go with that. So if it's at first it started with shoulder and chest, then I went to under the ribs. So you're going to always go with the emotion and wherever they're feeling in their body.
Okay, got it. Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Did we decide, are we going to do a poll about part 2 or are we just doing it or? Gabby, I'm asking you. Sorry, I didn't say Gabby.
No, it's okay. I didn't make a poll, but I can make a poll if you want real quick.
How about you guys just do you want to do a poll or do you want to just put them in the chat, yes or no? Just put in the chat.
Why don't you thumbs up Wendy's or like our last person who said I would like a part 2? That I think that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you guys. It sounds like enough. I don't want anybody to ever waste their time about these, right? So I'm hoping that this is something that you feel like you're learning something and can use the information. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I'm happy to move forward with the next part. The next part will be going through tabletops, like I mentioned a little bit. It'll also be talking about trauma. It'll also I'll probably tap a little bit on cravings, food cravings. So that might be an easier one to do, but I really appreciate you guys' participation today. I know this one's it was a little harder putting yourself out there. Wendy, thank you. Gabby, thank you for being our clients, or appreciate that. So anything, I guess we're getting, yeah, Beth?
I volunteer for next time for food cravings.
All right.
Especially chocolate.
I know, yes. Okay, well, Gabby, do you want to end us out here? We're right at 2 hours.
All right, good stuff. Thanks everybody for attending. I will update the invite for the next one. We are going to have it a little bit earlier in the month due to the holiday. Just be mindful of people's productivity and time off. We want to make sure it's a time that more people are still able to join, and be mindful of, the holiday and things like that. So the invite is a placeholder. I'll update it with the EFT part 2. If you're able to join, great. As you know that we record these. So if you need the recording, please send me an email after the training and I'll send that to you after the training for you. For today, I will be emailing all the attachments that was in the chat, and I will also be emailing the evaluation. If you can complete the evaluation and send that back to me before next Friday, that would be great. And if not, thank you for attending and have a happy Friday.
Thank you. You too. Have a good day.